Okay, share screen. And we'll resume.
Ketra ketra gayur gyanam jatta gyanam matang mama tat ketrang jatcha jadrikcha yad vikari jatascha jat sajaju jat prabhavascha tat samasena me srinu. Inisivir bahudha gitang chandovir vividhai prasak brahmasutra padaschaiva hetumadbhir vinischitai महाभूतान्न अहंकारो बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इंद्रियाणि दशैकंच पंच चेन्द्रिय गोचराः इच्छाद्वेष सुखं दुःखं संघातश्चेतना धृति एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेन सविकारमुदाहृतम् अमानित्वम् अदम्भित्वम् अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम् आचार्योपासनं शौचं सर्जमात्म विनिग्रह इंद्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम अनहंकार एव च जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुख दोषानुदर्शनम आसक्ति अनभिस्वंग पुत्र द्वार गृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वं मिष्टानि स्तूपपत्तिषु मयि चानन्य योगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्त देश सेवित्तम आरतिर्जन संसदि अध्यात्म ज्ञान नित्यत्वं तत्व ज्ञानार्थ दर्शनम एतद् ज्ञानम मिति प्रोक्तम अज्ञानं जदतोन्यथा.
I'll just pause here because this was such a nice part, listing all of these wonderful qualities. We can just go through the desirelessness for honor, pridelessness, non-violence, forbearance, honesty, service to the spiritual master, purity, stability, self-control, detachment from the objects of the senses, absence of egoism, awareness of the miseries of birth, disease, old age, and death, worldly detachment, absence of doting on children, wife, home, etc., constant equanimity in desirable or undesirable circumstances, undeviating pure devotion to me, residing in a solitary place, indifference to mundane association, constancy in self-knowledge, and the vision of the goal of true knowledge. All these qualities have been said to denote knowledge. Okay, I'll go back. And also just as a review, I mentioned previously just now too, but we discussed more last week, these terms, the field and the knower of the field, or kshetra and kshetragya in Sanskrit. Very helpful terms, right? And it gives this wonderful perspective that these bodies are just like these fields where all this stuff is playing out, right? And who is I? That is something else. That is distinct. But all these, emotions, attachment, all these things that we go through, desire, it is all just like this field, playing out. Okay. And, the real self is aloof, is above, beyond all these things. The duality of this world. Okay, we'll continue.
Jadgattamritanusnute anadi matparagna brahma na saptanasva duschati sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatah kishiro mukham sarvatah sutiman loke sarvamavritta tishtati sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarvabhrichaiva nirkunam gunabhaktricha बहिरंतश्च भूतानाम आचरण चरमेव च सुखोत्तात् तद अभिज्ञेयं दूरस्थं चान्तिके च तत् अविभक्तं च भूतेषु विभक्तमिव च स्थितं भूतभर्तृ च तज्ज्ञेयं ग्रसिष्णु प्रभविष्णु च ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिस्तमसः परमुच्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यं हृदि सर्वस्य अधिष्ठितं इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानं ज्ञेयञ्चोक्तं समासतः मद्भक्त एतद् विज्ञाय मद्भावायोपपद्यते प्रकृति पुरुषं चैव विद्धन्नादि उभावपि विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृति संभवान् कार्य.
Okay, so so we're back on track. So this is where we left off last week, we believe, verse 20. So we can maybe hear Gurudev chanting the first 20 verses and 10 verses, and then we can chant ourselves. So we're here in verse 20.
कारण कर्तृत्वे हेतु प्रकृति रुच्यते पुरुष सुख दुखानां भक्तित्वे हेतु रुच्यते पुरुष प्रकृतोस्थो हि भुंक्ते प्रकृति ज्ञान गुणान् कारणं गुणसंगस्य सदसज्जूनि जन्मसु उपद्रष्टानुमन्ता च भर्ता भुक्ता महेश्वरः परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो देहेस्मिन् पुरुषः परः य एवं वेत्ति पुरुषं प्रकृतिं च गुणैः सह सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि न स भूयोऽभिजायते ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति केचिदात्मात्मनमात्मनः अन्ये सांख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे अन्ये तेवमजानन्तः श्रुतान्येभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चाति तरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः यावत् संजायते किञ्चित् सत्त्वं स्थावरजङ्गमं क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञसंयोगात् तद्विद्धि भरतर्षभ समं सर्वेषु भूतेषु तिष्ठन्तं परमेश्वरं विनश्यत् स्वविनश्यन्तं यः पश्यति स पश्यति समं पश्यन् हि सर्वत्र समवस्थितमीश्वरं न हीनस्त्वात्मनात्मानं ततो जाति परां गतिं प्रकृत्यैव च कर्माणि क्रियमाणानि सर्वशः यः पश्यति तथात्मानम् अकर्तारं स पश्यति.
Okay, so we can stop there in verse 30 and we can go back and chant these. So going back to verse 20. Prakritim purusham chaiva vidyanadi ubhavapi vikaram stragunam chaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan karya karana karchitve hetu prakriti uchyate Purusha sukha dukkhanam bhokchitve hetu uchyate Purusha prakriti stohi excuse me bhunkte prakriti jangunan. We have is that Eli in Salt Lake City? Probably entering the waiting room. I hope so. Okay, we've admitted him. Purusha prakriti stohi bhunkte prakriti jangunan karanam guna sangosya sadasadyoni janmasu upajastanumantacha partha bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmeti chapyukto tehesmin purusha para ya evam veti purusham prakritincha gunai saha sarvata vartamanupi nasabhuyo bijay. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, could you bring, I have some throat sweets, or I think they're in the inner flap of the suitcase there. Or otherwise, if you bring my purse, I have some in there. It's somewhere in the cupboard, I think. Okay, so 25. Jnanenatmani pashyanti kechiratmanamatmana anye sankhena yogena karma yogena chapane anye tvevam ajananta shutvanyebhya upasate tepi chati tarantyeva mityum shuti parayanaha. yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam stavara jangamam kshetragya samyogat tadvidi panatarshaba samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram vinashyat vinashyantam ya pashyati sa pashyati samam pashyani sarvatra samavasti tamishwaram nahi nasyatmanatmanam tato yati param gatim prakriti-purusa-vivek-yoga cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashaha yapashyati tatatmanam akartanam sapashyati. Okay, looks like we have Chintamani with us. Do you want to read the translations, Chintamani? So 20 to 30.
Dandavat to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Please let me know if my sound cuts out. Know that both material nature, Maya, and the person, individual soul, are beginningless, and know that the transformations, body, senses, and their functions, and the transformations of the modes of nature, such as pleasure, pain, sorrow, and delusion, are born of material nature. Didi, do you want me to read what's in parentheses, or should I skip over that? Okay, I'll just keep reading. Text 21. Material nature is said to be the cause of the production of effect, and cause, the person in material bondage, is said to be the cause of the condition of being an enjoyer or a sufferer of happiness and unhappiness. I didn't really understand that one. I'm going to read it again. Material nature is said to be the cause of the production of effect, parentheses, the body, and the cause, the senses. The person in material bondage is said to be the cause of the condition of being an enjoyer or a sufferer of happiness and unhappiness. Didi, I just got confused by the parentheses. Like, do I read what's in parentheses or not? And it just made it like a really long sentence. So please forgive me my reading.
No, yeah, I mean, I think we can read them. They're supposed to be helpful, but maybe they're not.
Text 22. Being situated within material nature, a person enjoys the modes born of material nature. His attachment to these modes is the cause of his repeated births in higher and lower species. 23. The Supreme Person, the witness, sanctioner, support, guardian, and Almighty Lord within this body is known as Paramatman, the Supersoul. 24. Thus, one who truly knows the Supreme Person and material nature with its modes will never, in any circumstances, have to take birth again. 25. With their pure consciousness, some persons see the Supersoul within the heart in their meditation. Others perceive him through enlightenment, and yet others by the yoga of selfless action. 26. Further, there are those who, not knowing of these methods, engage in worship by hearing the scriptures. When their faith is deepened by such hearing, they too surpass the mortal plane. 27. O Arjuna, best of the Bharats, whatever is born in the world, whether moving or stationary, know it to be manifest from the combination of the field and its knower. 28. One who sees the Supreme Lord situated equally within all beings, as the imperishable within the perishable, such a person sees perfectly. 29. Such a person with the vision of equality, seeing the Lord dwelling in every place alike, does not deceive himself and thus he attains the supreme destination. 30. He who sees that all actions are brought about only by material nature sees himself as non-doer. Pass.
Very nice. Thank you, Kamini. Wow, it gives a lot of perspective. Anyone have any thoughts they want to share? Any reflections? And Tamini, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, this chapter 13, when I start to want to understand Gita more, like having reflections, like to get to the point where like, oh, can I even reflect on that? Like, what the heck was just even said? I like to go to the beginning of the chapter and see that it's Prakrti-purusa-vivek-yoga, and then remembering how that these verses are just like infinite, that you could just pick up. I could read the Bhagavad Gita how many times and then pick it up, and it's like I've never read it before. Like, wow, I've read this before? Really? Okay.
Wonderful. That means you're connecting with the living Bhagavad Gita, because that's the test, right? That it feels fresh. That was Srila Sridhar Maharaj's comment, that although you may be doing something or reading something, hearing something again and again, there's always something new. There's always something fresh. So, yeah, what I appreciate here is, again, just going back to this point about Kshetra and Kshetragya, the field and the knower of the field, just developing this awareness, right, of all these emotions and, this plane of duality, like, dislike, attraction, revulsion, how it's all playing out within us. And it's just this field of mundane nature. And let me see that. This one about like combination of these two things. Where is it? Oh, lost it now. Here we are, this verse 27. Whatever is born in the world, whether moving or stationary, know it to be manifest from the combination of the field and its knower. And this verse 20 and 21 giving us like a clear breakdown of these different elements involved. The material nature, who are all the, the main characters and the main elements at play. Maya, illusion, the person, the transformations of the body, senses, their functions, transformations of the modes of nature, such as pleasure, pain, sorrow, delusion. Just like a big kitchery pot going on, right? And normally, like, we're just conditioned to identify with these encasements, right? But as some spiritual awareness grows within us, and this distance will grow, we'll become more of an observer, more of a witness, and just understand this is all just playing out. Anyone else have any comments? Let's see who else is here. Marie, any thoughts?
They're not putting themselves into words. There's something going on, but it's like back at the occipital lobe, so I don't know how to word it yet.
Okay. Okay, well, we can continue.
I have another reflection, Didi. I'll share one.
Great.
That this part in let me see, I just lost it. One who truly knows the supreme person and material nature with its modes will never in any circumstances have to take birth again. I find that totally fascinating about, like, we're getting a recipe for breaking the cycle of birth and death, which sounds pretty amazing. And I also really resonate with the clarity that's given here. Like right before that, the attachment to these modes is the cause of repeated births in higher and lower species. And I've been working in like Karmi people's houses all week and seeing like the modes playing out. It's like what they're eating, what their lifestyle, their cleanliness, their lack thereof, and the children, and like what their consciousnesses are, and how like really everything is just a combination of these modes. And the more we can like, oh, that's a rajasic behavior, that's a tamasic behavior, that's and in my own person, it's like Dee told me like to tell me no more caffeine. Like, okay, no more caffeine. Like, yeah, it's rajasic. Like I've got plenty of rajas already going on, so it's time for more sattva. So it's not like a judgment. It's about like how do we use this teaching, which includes reading the script. We need guru, sadhus, and shastra. So the shastra here is giving us all this like, okay, here's how you do it. And you need a sadhu. Like we're lucky to have a sadhu like the Shaka Didi who's sincere and not, I can say we won't mention other spiritual sadhu leaders out there, but we're glad, we're just lucky to have Vishaka Didi with us, that we can trust that she's giving us good guidance under the shelter of Srila Govinda Maharaj. Ki Jai!
Jai Chintamani Devi, we appreciate your heartfelt, sincere reflections and appreciation. Very nice. Okay, well, there's only so much I can say about all this because it is kind of like yogi stuff, if I'm honest. I guess you can say this is, grew up. I'm reminded one comment. Actually, I heard this from Avadut Maharaj, one of our sannyasis that our Gurudev made about who I don't remember which avatar. It was one of the avatars, the Vishnu avatars, and Gurudev said, "There's only so much we can say because he's Vishnu Tattva, There's only so much we can say, Our hearts are sold, or at least our Guru's hearts are sold for the Golden Lord Chaitanya, Shri Gauranga Dev, and Shri Krishna, the Lord of Love, right? The plane of Rasa, right? So this is all kind of like, Sankhya Yoga stuff, and there's only so much we can say about it. But it's helpful in the category of Sambandha Gyan, right? Having some awareness of how everything ties together, how everything's working. Yesterday in our other book group, Brahma Samhita, there was a really helpful definition of Sambandha Gyan there. Knowledge of one's position within the absolute. I really appreciated that. Knowledge of one's position within the absolute, right? Because normally we think of ourselves relative to a very limited framework, a very limited set of circumstances, right? Within our immediate environment, right? That we have this type of body, we have this type of family, we have this type of culture, and so on, right? This type of economic status. We identify ourselves in this very limited way. But Sambandha Gyan is zooming out. Where are we? What are we within eternity, within the stream of eternity? Who are we? What's our relationship with the whole? What's the real purpose of the whole? What's the real current of the whole? And where do we fit into that? So knowledge of one's understanding of oneself within the relativity of the absolute. This is Sambandha Gyan. And so this type of knowledge is a part of that, understanding what these bodies are and how they're relating with the environment, how we're influenced by so many different subtle, mundane elements. So it's helpful, very helpful for us. Okay, well, we can go to the end of this chapter. We ended on verse 30 there. Okay.
जदा भूत पृथक भावम एकस्थम अनुपश्यति ततः एव च विस्तारं ब्रह्म संपद्यते तथा तदा अनादित्वान् निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायमव्यय शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते यथा सर्वगतं सौख्यादाकाशं नोपलिप्यते सर्वत्रावस्थितो देहे तथात्मा नोपलिप्यते यथा प्रकाशयत्येकः कृष्णं लोकमिमं रवि क्षेत्रं क्षेत्री तथा कृष्णं प्रकाशयति भारत क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोरेवम् अन्तरं ज्ञानचक्षुषा भूत प्रकृति मुख्यं च ये विदुर्चान्ति ते परम् इति श्री महाभारते शतसाहस्रां संहितायां वैयासिक्यां भीष्म पर्वणि श्रीमद् भगवद गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्म विद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे प्रकृति-पुरुष-विवेक-योगो नाम त्रयोदशोऽध्याय.
Okay, so we just finished. So yes, Vivek, right? This is the word. You know, Vivek is referring to this type of like analysis. So Prakriti, right? The mundane energy, Shakti, Purush, you know, the Lord, and some distinction, some analysis of the both. You know, that's what's going on in this chapter. But Purushas can also refer to the individual, right? Like that, how the individual is relating, you know, with Prakriti, with the material energy. So I think there's some different layers of meaning there. Okay, so we can chant these verses. Going back to verse 30 here. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvashaha yapashyati tadatmanam akartanam sapashyati yada bhuta pritagbavam ekastam anupashyati tataiva cha vishtadam brahma sampadyate tada anaditvan nigunatvat paramatmayam avyayaha Sharirastopi kunteya nakaroti na lipyate yata sarvagatam sukshmyad akasham nopalipyate sarvachavastito dehe tatatmanopalipyate yata prakashayatyeka kritsnam lokamimam ravihi kshetram kshetri tata kritsnam prakashayati bharata Kshetra gayorevam antaram jnana chakshusha Uta prakriti mokshancha ye viduryanti te param. Okay, and I'll skip that last part. We've already chanted. So, Marie, do you want to read those translations from 31?
Yes. Okay. Starting at 31. When such an enlightened person realizes that the different types of beings are situated within the one nature, and that all are made manifest from that nature, he attains realization of Brahma. O Arjuna, since the supersoul is beginningless, transcendental, and inexhaustible, although also present within the field, within the individual soul, he neither acts nor is affected by any action. As the most subtle element of space pervades everything, yet is not tainted by anything, similarly the soul, though pervading the body, is not tainted by it. O Bharat, as one sun illuminates the entire world, the occupier of the field illuminates the entire field. Those who, through the eyes of knowledge, can thus distinguish between the field and the knower of the field, and who can thus know the path of liberation of the living beings from material nature, such persons attain the supreme.
Very nice. I think that last verse kind of ties everything up. the eyes of Jnana Chakshu. This is a very nice expression here. Jnana Chakshu. Gyan, knowledge, and Chakshu is referring to eyes. We also hear the phrase Shastra Chakshu, the eye of scripture, right? So this is very powerful. This is the eye that we are trying to develop, the lens through which we want to view the world. And this prayer that is, commonly sung, chanted by our community is Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. This is, describing how Shri Guru is giving us that eye, right? Removing the cataracts, removing the mundane lens, and giving us the ointments, the salve of divine Jnana Chakshu, giving us that lens of true knowledge and scripture, giving us the proper eye. So with that eye, we can make this distinction between what is matter, what is spirit, and ultimately become liberated from this plane. And, as we were kind of indicating earlier, this is not 100% relevant to those in the practice of bhakti, devotion, but it's helpful background knowledge, you could say. And this liberation is something that will, actually this type of knowledge, this type of liberation, it will take place as a side effect of the culture of devotion, right? This is what we are told. So, okay, well, we've come to the end of chapter 13. Well, should we move on to 14, or what does everyone think?
I have something I want to say about one of those verses. Was it 32 or 33? I think it's 33.
Mm-hmm.
It was touching on something that was an issue for me for a long time. The soul, though pervading the body, is not tainted by it. That was one of those things that I was in conversations with Govinda and I was just in tears over multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things when you shift from a single human life perspective to the possibility of multiple lives, it opens up, because when you have a single life, if you're not progressing, you're harming your soul, basically, because there isn't a chance if you don't get far enough. And so that was something where that shift, really gave me a lot of hope.
That's beautiful to hear, Marie. Yeah, I mean, I feel that, I feel that on the whole, Christianity is describing the same thing and looking at the same thing, but it's just all a bit more hazy.
Well, and it's missing just a couple of key concepts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the reason is there wasn't the language for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, certain things are just a little too simplistic. And so yes, this is one point which is very hopeful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I
we
mean,
all have a second chance.
On the one hand, the vagueness is helpful sometimes, because like people like me who tend to mental out on things and want to know all the details, there's less temptation to get lost in the details. But yeah, that all I had before that was a couple of clergy confiding privately, well, we can't say how it might happen, but personally, I don't think God gives up on us. But like, that was the closest we had to there might be another chance, So on a bad day, that doesn't help, on a good day, that can be enough, but.
Yes, it's certainly very comforting that there's always tomorrow, right? There's always another chance.
Mhm.
Yeah. That reminds me of this story that we hear. And actually he became, I bet Jayadev could say his name. I don't know if Chintamani, maybe Chintamani knows too, but he was a British man. He became like this, somewhat famous Gaudiya Vaishnava in India. Not a part of the lineage of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. I don't even know if he came in contact with them. But it was Srila Sridhar Maharaj tells this story maybe in Search for Sri Krishna. It was during one of the world wars, and he's falling down, right? His plane's been shot down, and he's falling down, and he doesn't know, right, what's going to happen. I think he was also kind of on the border between an enemy line and a friend line, and he wasn't sure where he's going to fall. And he made a fervent prayer at that time that, oh Lord, please save me. And I promise that if you save me, and I'll spend the rest of my life searching after you, every moment of every day. And he became unconscious. He awoke. I think it was in a French hospital. And he remembered his promise to the Lord, and he followed through with it. And after he recovered, he returned to England, and he went to, many clergymen, priests and so on, and inquiring, is there a way in which I can have this, continuous, right, 24 hours a day connection with the Lord? Like, can you describe any process by which that's possible? And they were all, weren't so, like you said, right, some hazy answer, weren't so sure about it. And then finally one of them said, oh, we've heard about these yogis in India, and they have some process by which they can have this type of connection, continuous connection with the Lord. And so he actually followed that and went to India, and he ended up coming in connection with some followers of Lord Chaitanya, and he himself became a renunciate, and there's a book written about him. I can't remember his name. But yes, this is why we're here, right? We find all the answers here crystal clear. For me, that's one of the most maybe I'll stop or share. For me, that's one of the primary, I'll see each other a little better now. It's one of the primary things that that really makes me feel this is meaningful. From one angle we may say, oh, this will make you happy, or you'll live a better life, or whatever, right? But for me, more fundamental to all of that is the fact that we're being given a clear picture of reality, right? That we want a clear map, right? That is this inconceivable gift, that's being given by our gurus, by the scripture, that we have some clarity. It is an invaluable thing. Marie, did you want to say something else?
I had a few thoughts that maybe I could, but I'm not. They're nebulous, because it has to do with the difference between doctrine being what you have to believe and what you agree to teach, and also the whole thing. I was wondering if that gentleman you were talking about talked to Wesleyans because of any stripe, because one of the things that John Wesley had put forth was that eventually one could get to what we would call entire sanctification, where you would have that 24-hour connection, but there wasn't a prescribed process. This was the process for me to approach that. And I know I've met people who have gotten there, but I haven't gotten there yet. So we don't actually know whether the process we have matches up with the observed state that exists.
Mm,
in a few people. So
mm,
yeah, but then that, most Christians look at that and they say, what are you talking about? How can you be in heaven while you're on earth? That doesn't even make sense. So,
mm.
we're kind of the nuts in a lot of ways.
Well, that's very interesting perspective to add to that, Marie. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Oh, very nice. Well, we still have a few minutes left. I don't know if I want to move on to the next chapter. Maybe I prefer to savor.
I think we should start fresh next week.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too. So next week, we'll pick up on something Chintamani was referring to, the 3 divisions of material nature. We'll hear more about the 3 modes of material nature, so stay tuned for that.
And why Chintamani can't have more caffeine and why I have to keep mine limited. Yep.
Oh, no. Hey. Anyone else want to share any thoughts in these moments we have left? Roger?
Let's hear. Yeah, Dulal, Krishna, and Roger. Y'all sitting there with the nice background. Let's hear from you both.
Dandava pranams.
Yeah, I can say I just kind of almost tangibly feeling the benefits or the power of association. I know I've been in and out of this community a lot over the last, mostly out, just but I just really appreciate feeling, Vishaka remembers who I am, and like I'm here with
Please,
Bilal, and
sure.
now I'm remembering, like, from your beanie, I can remember being on this Zoom with you, like 9 months ago or something like that.
Sure, yeah.
And it's just today I'm just really feeling like a lot of things coming together. I have some like interesting crossroads coming up with my job and my location, and I don't know how much of a choice I'm going to have in the matter, just depending on if I get hired at this thing or not. But I'm thankful, at least, like, it seems like no matter what happens in the future for me, it's going to be kind of Krishna centric at this point. Like
Right.
it's feeling,
Yeah,
it's feeling kind of unavoidable, and I just am feeling like really grateful for that. It seems like kind of answered prayers in a lot of way. And I don't tend to do very well like reading scriptures on my own. So I just really, but reading it in a group, I just do way better. So just very grateful. Thank you all. Yeah.
thanks, Roger.
Thank you for sharing, Roger. That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. We're
Thank you.
we're not just here for, an impersonal academic study, but we're here to also connect and share our, as we're progressing together in Krishna consciousness. And so sharing our hearts is a part of that. And we appreciate you being vulnerable. And I know Gangalila has something to say. She always ties things up in the most beautiful and articulate way.
Do I? I don't know about that.
You do, you really do.
I don't know about that. I'm just thinking, like, Roger, you kind of in and out, and now you're like there with our god brother Dulal Krishna. How cool is that? These worlds interweaving, how we have such a beautiful community. I'm just really moved by it, and I begin to feel the web of it. So even if I'm not physically necessarily having contact with the Vaishnavas, having that association, I do have lots of association, but for me, I feel that web is getting stronger and it's beautiful. So I want to just thank everyone for sharing their own personal way of how they are becoming Krishna consciousness. I think that's really amazing to witness that, and all of us, because some of us, we know each other for some years now, and I'm seeing incredible connections, like internal and also external. So I want to yeah, I want to just kind of everyone to lift their hand and tap on your own shoulder, like, yes, we have community. We're doing this together. We're witnessing each other, growing and purifying, and we help each other with that. So wonderful. Thanks for sharing all that. I don't know what else to say. Maybe we can chant 3 times the Maha Mantra, because this is really our glue. So if you want to unmute your microphone, we can just do that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna
Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
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 Rama,
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare.
Okay, and Vishaka's laptop is frozen. So,
Vishaka Devi Dasi Maharaj ki
Jai.
Bye.
so we will see you all next week, we hope.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat, y'all.
Dandavat.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Marie, for hosting.
Thank you, Marie.
Muchas